Hello students, good morning all of you. Today I Rabindra Mohan Misra from Sri Jagdamba Sanskrit College Batho am taking the class of Shastri first. Today we see explanation from the poem Home Thought from Abroad. We have seen the summary of the poem Home Thoughts from Abroad. Again, we have seen the structure of the given poem. Today, we see explanation from the poem Home Thoughts from Abroad. First paragraph for today's explanation is Oh, to be in England, not that April's there, and whoever wakes in England sees some morning unaware. These lines have been taken from the poem Home Thoughts from Abroad. These lines are composed by Robert Browning. Robert Browning was a great Victorian poet. After numerous failures, he finally became successful and came to be known as one of the foremost Victorian poets due to his mastery of the dramatic monologue. In these above lines, the poet shows his love towards his motherland, England. He expresses his innermost feeling about his home country in these lines. Next paragraph. In these above lines, in the first stanza, introduces a speaker who longs for home. Many readers may be able to relate with the speaker, and that gives the poem an intensified meaning for some readers. It looks like we have a speaker with each feet on our hand. The speaker wants to be in England. We also get the time of year when he makes his wish. This is the month of April. For some reasons, April has significance for our speaker. It seems to that it might have significance for England since April is there. This guy is trapped in some kind of interdimensional time portal. The poet clearly loves his home country. He is emotional in his opening of home thoughts from abroad, using the word oh to reflect his deep longing to be home. The author's use of description of nature is typical of a poem written during the Romantic era. He describes his home country in April and is clearly envious of whoever works in England during the summer. The poet is unconscious about his inner feeling. He has only one mission: to love his country at any cost. In short, we conclude that the poet Robert Browning captures his love for his home, England, in a very beautiful manner through this fantastic poem. Though he is far away in a foreign place, he is often reminded of home by the smallest of things. The result of that nostalgia and memories is this poem. Now we come in the next paragraph that the lowest box and the brushwood sheaf around the elm tree bowl are in tiny leaf, while the chaffinch sings on the orchard bough in England. Now, these lines are taken from the poem Home Thoughts from Abroad. These are composed by Robert Browning. Robert Browning was a great Victorian poet. Apart from this, he is also considered a great master of the dramatic monologue. He speaks of his home country, England, very fondly. In these lines, he says how lovely it would be to live there. Again, in these lines, he speaks of elm trees, bare leaves, and chaffinch, breeding bird in England, which sings better. In second paragraph, in these above lines, the poet reminds us that there is a very beautiful nature. It does not look like our speaker is a time travel after all. He just got and he has just got an active imagination, especially He is imagining someone waking up in England right at the moment he is talking to us in this poem. That imagined person is saying some pretty neat stuff. He describes the lowest box and the brushwood shelf. He seems to connect with nature in that he misses it when he thinks of his home country. It is interesting that when he expresses his desire to be in England, he does not mention any particular people or person but refers to nature. Again, it is a reflective of a romantic poetry for the author to reveal a connection with and love for nature. The speaker continues to describe the elm tree bole and its tiny leaves. He describes the chaffinch as it sings on the orchard now. This is the way he left England, and this is the England he longs to return. Whenever the speaker is, it is clear that the coming of spring has brought these feelings of longing for his home country. The person is noticing how little leaves are budding on the trunk and lower branches of the elm tree. It looks like this is the first time that this person has noticed that, because the speaker tells us that they were previously unaware. Where there are trees, there are birdies, and this tree is no exception. A tiny songbird, a chaffinch, is chirping away in the branches of this orchard, and the speaker reminds us that this is all going down in England where he is not. In short, we conclude that in this poem there is an interaction between the speaker and nature. The coming of spring has affected the speaker in causing him to long for England. This description of interaction of a person and nature is also characteristic of poetry from the Romantic era. This today we read two explanation from this poem. Next day we see